The subcommittee is meeting today to hear testimony from our witnesses in order to examine the validity of the assertion that the border is better now than it has ever been. Before I begin my opening statement, there are several members that have asked to join our hearing today. I ask unanimous consent that Mr. Cuellar, a member of the full committee, Mr. Canseco of Texas, Mr. Green of Texas, also be allowed to sit on the dais for the hearing today. Here, no objection is so ordered. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the hearing today. The hearing is titled On the Border and in the Line of Fire, U.S. Law Enforcement, Homeland Security, and Drug Cartel Violence. It is the second of two hearings to raise awareness of the dangers we face along our southern border with Mexico, to determine what we are doing to confront this growing national security threat to both countries. Our first hearing examined the U.S. strategy assisting Mexico to win the war against the drug cartels. Testimony revealed drug cartels are taking huge amounts of territory, and the violence in Mexico is escalating at an alarming rate. We concluded there is no comprehensive U.S. strategy and recommended they use lessons learned from Plan Colombia as our framework. Additionally, federal law defines terrorism as activity that is intended to intimidate a civilian population or to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or to affect the conduct of a government by assassination or kidnapping. In my judgment, the drug cartels fall squarely within this definition. That is why Chairman King and I introduced H.R. 1270, designating the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations to provide us more authority to go after them and those who provide them with assistance. We communicated all these findings to Secretary Clinton, Attorney General Holder, and Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, Mr. Donnellan. I would first like to take this moment to commend President Calderon for taking on these drug cartels and the political courage he has demonstrated. But in my view, Mexico is losing this war, and so are we. It is my intention that through these hearings, we can help Mexico win it. Today, we examine the U.S. side of the border. It is necessary to provide a realistic security assessment as determined by local and state law enforcement and accurately measure the level of crime in our border communities related to cartel activities. In March, our Secretary of Homeland Security said that the border is better now than it has ever been. Many officials who are directly in the line of fire, such as Captain Bob Bullock of the Texas Rangers, disagree with the Secretary. And we heard last week from Sheriff Devers in Arizona stating he disagreed. Of course, there is violence along the border. There is a spillover of crime and intimidation. Since January 2010, the Texas Department of Public Safety has identified at least 22 murders, 24 assaults, 15 shootings, 5 kidnappings directly related to this spillover. This past Sunday, there was a gun battle between Mexican Marines and drug smugglers on Falcon Lake, which straddles the border, killing 13 people. And we have in our presence today Ms. Tiffany Hartley. This is the same lake where Tiffany Hartley of Colorado watched the cartels murder her husband in cold blood while they were riding jet skis together last year. And thank you for being here. Arizona sheriff said that Mexican drug gangs literally do control parts of Arizona, noting that gang members are armed with radio, optics, and night vision goggles. Texas Zapata County Sheriff Ziggy Gonzalez, who is here today as well, said that the feds say our side of the border is safe, but we have bullet holes in our schools and businesses that say otherwise. The cartels do not fear U.S. law enforcement. In February, we saw evidence of that as the Los Zetas gangs ambushed and killed U.S. ICE agent Jaime Zapata and wounded his partner, Agent Avila, in broad daylight on a Mexican highway. And they commonly threaten law enforcement on American soil, most recently threatening to shoot at state police or federal agents from across the river in Mexico. Make no mistake, the drug cartels are here inside the United States. The Department of Homeland Security reports that Mexican drug cartels have infiltrated 276 U.S. cities. And after Agent Zapata was killed, more than 450 cartel members were arrested across this country. The greatest impact on the U.S. side of the border is not well publicized, and the Mexican drug cartels continue to threaten and intimidate. They offer their victims plata o plomo, silver or lead, meaning the bribe or the bullet. This is exactly how these cartels operate. For example, in the border town of Reynosa, Mexico, across the Rio Grande, from McAllen, body parts were found this past December which were no longer recognizable. Bloodstained poster board had a message of intimidation written on it. See, here, shut up if you want to stay alive. It has been reported by the FBI, which issued a bulletin as early as 2008, warning drug gangs stockpiling weapons in safe houses in the United States in response to crackdowns against drug traffickers. The bulletin also said a drug kingpin ordered gang members to regain control and engage law enforcement officers if confronted. Gang members were armed with assault rifles, bulletproof vests, and hand grenades. Late that same year, the Mexican Federal Police and the Mexican Army discovered what was then the largest weapon seizure in Mexico's history just a few miles from our border, 540 rifles, including 288 assault rifles, 50 caliber sniper rifles, 287 hand grenades, anti-tank weapons, 500,000 rounds of ammunition, ballistic vests, and 14 sticks of dynamite. While we know that spillover violence occurs, the Congressional Research Service recently found that no one set of data exists that can definitively answer whether there has been significant spillover violence. The federal definition of spillover violence is based on the Uniform Crime Report. Significantly, this report does not include key data such as kidnappings, extortions, home invasions, smuggling, and cartel-on-cartel violence. In contrast, the Texas Department of Public Safety's definition of spillover violence includes aggravated assault, extortion, kidnapping, torture, rape, and murder. And the director of the Texas DPS, Colonel Steve McCraw, who is here today, says, quote, "There's no question spillover violence is growing in Texas," end quote. I've urged the President to visit the border, but to do more than to deliver a political speech. And while I'm pleased that we've added more resources to the border, it is not secure. And it's never been more violent or dangerous than it is today. And anybody who lives down there will tell you that. And there is a disagreement about the definition of spillover violence and the extent of that violence. But there should be no disagreement about the threat we face and what will happen if this administration continues to downplay the threat. So what should we do? For starters, I think we should get out of our foxholes and lean forward against this growing threat. If we don't take the cartels, they will eventually take over our cities. We need to extend the use of the National Guard troops on the border and increase their numbers until we have a sufficient number of Border Patrol agents. We need to incorporate DoD surveillance technology along the border. We need to add at least 2 more unmanned aerial vehicles to the Texas-Mexico border. We need increased southbound checkpoints or best teams to confiscate weapons and cash they use and then use the cash to help pay for border security operations. And finally, we need to increase funding to state and local law enforcement along the border through increased funding of operations like Operation Stone Garden. So with that, let me say I look forward to the testimony here today. I want to thank the witnesses for being here. And now the chair recognizes the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Thompson.